honestly, I would have never thought that I would have had to make a part 2 to Blackwashing. As long and as eye-opening as that video was, it appears that we have even more case examples to get into today. But ladies and gentlemen, we have Blackwashing part 2 today, and we can add a couple more actors, historical figures, etc. to the very long and painfully surprising list of blackwash characters. But let's get into it. Hello again, YouTube. Brown and Beige community here again. And once again, we find ourselves at the topic of blackwashing. After my almost hour-long case study of nearly 47 minutes of light-skinned people portrayed by dark-skinned people, it looks like we have some more examples to add to that list. Some I missed in the video, some fairly recent that we have. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of things in regards to this topic, particularly the, even to this day, one-sided criticism when it comes to this. But today we'll start things off with one that I thought was very shocking, particularly since this show basically is on Amazon and most of the other people look kind of similar. But in this case, we have One Night in Miami. We have Eli Gore as Muhammad Ali. And this one I find very funny because everyone and their mama knows how Muhammad Ali looked in his movies. And Muhammad Ali was a very, very well-known. First, not only is he one of the greatest boxers of all time, but is probably one of the most well-known activists of all time. So this is a man who deserves all recognition and most definitely deserves to have his image and his likeness represented well. Which Will Smith, even though a lot of people pretty much we all know how to feel about Will Smith right now, but he did his Muhammad Ali justice in his movie. But here we are in today's contemporary kind of, we'll just say, left-leaning society, where now everything is conflated, where you have people, one side will say, well, it shouldn't matter if he doesn't look like him because he's playing him. But these same people will then turn around and write essays in practically 50-page papers if it's the other way around. So I'm confused here. If we're going to call this subject at hand, then shouldn't we call it the same regardless? I mean, that's just the way I look at this situation. But I guess that's just me then. Moving on. Although technically not really ever produced, we have Jamie Foxx, who was set to portray Bob Marley, but the project was shut down. And Jamie Foxx has also been known to have played George Jefferson in the Jeffersons reboot. And the very fact that they would even cast Jamie Foxx as Bob Marley is hilarious to me. Because not only was Bob Marley very light, but he was mixed as well. So not only do they do a discredit to his genealogy, but basically his entire phenotype as well. Jamie Foxx looked absolutely nothing like Bob Marley. It should never have honestly even been in consideration for playing him. And luckily that project never took off. So kudos to them for that. But we have another one that's pretty much the same thing for another well-known light-skinned male in the 70s. And that is Tracy Morgan was tabbed to play Red Fox. And we have yet another one. Tracy Morgan, I don't get it. Like, in what universe can Tracy Morgan even, like, how does he even look anything like Red Fox? Like, that just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Like, they could have found so many more people that could have played him. So many more. It's like they just find this, oh, they're both black, so we'll just find, even though he's clearly not phenotypically similar to him, we'll just cast them because they're both black. But as I will show later in this video, that same attitude does not seem to exist the other way around. And it really makes you look at Hollywood in a different light, because they're the ones that basically are producing these clearly, like, historically inaccurate depictions of these light-skinned males and females. And the community itself's fault for not addressing it at face value. But are you really surprised? And next up we have Jalen Hall as Emmett Till. And once again, even at a younger age, it is pretty clear that this casting is not accurate. Honestly, even if you look at Emmett Till's mom and his clearly light complexion in the pictures that's depicted, they still go and find somebody that looks absolutely nothing like him. It's one thing that Emmett Till had to endure what he did at the time when, well, tensions were at an all-time high, and black people, regardless of color, were basically viewed as less than in American society. And he was killed basically based on a lie. All these years later, the woman finally came forward and basically said that she made the whole thing up, which is just disheartening to say the least. He basically died for nothing. And the one time that the liberal society could actually do him justice, and they still spit in his face with a movie depiction of somebody who looks absolutely nothing like him. Even in death, they still spit on his image. And of course, the black community sits in silence, gives them the thumbs up, because I think we can all agree that if this was the other way around, we would have practically whole page essays, as I will show later in this video, condemning them for it. Why we don't see it now is beyond me. And we have the most eye-opening one you could think of, and Coco Jones basically cast to be today's version of Hilary Banks. And this one is hilarious, to say the least, because it's been very evident by the thousands upon thousands of YouTube videos. I think we all can agree what happens if this is the other way around, and where I was showing a case example later in this video of what happens when they do the opposite of this. So I'm just curious as to why this didn't receive any backlash like the other ones do. We all know how Hilary Banks looked in the original Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And even if you look at the Bel-Air cast itself, none of the people look absolute. Uncle Phil doesn't look like himself. Like, the whole cast is just off. But it basically shows you in today's society that you're not going to see. Which is why I think, as far as black TV shows and movies are concerned, that they shouldn't do reboots. Because nowadays, with this whole political stuff that's going around, the black community itself is really not trying to see, even in the expense of old times, light-skinned people cast to play roles that were basically theirs. But in today's society, that doesn't happen because we got all these woke societies running around that really don't want to see a light-skinned male or female, for that matter, in shows like this anyway. And rebooting them basically just gives them the red light, as you can see in this video and my previous blackwashing video, what happens. And who's to say we're probably not going to see it more in the future. And next we have Daniel Ezra as Spencer Paysinger in All American, which was basically based on Spencer Paysinger's early NFL career. And again, Ezra never doesn't look even remotely close to Spencer Paysinger. And even though they pretty much have changed basically some events, this is still based on him and his story. So it's already one thing that they already don't have a character that even looks remotely close to him. But it's another thing to basically change up the story too. I guess it's to add shock value, I guess. But nonetheless, if you're going to base a story on somebody, then wouldn't it make sense to get somebody that kind of looks like the person? Well, I guess that logic doesn't really exist in today's American media. Because I guess nowadays, as long as it can make a quick buck, that's really all that matters. And as we'll see in this next example, a little less well-known fact of this well-known Disney movie was that The Princess and the Frog was based on Leah Chase, a very well-known Creole chef who was basically dubbed the queen of Creole cuisine. And if there's one thing a common dynamic with Creoles is they are usually the main victims of blackwashing. Here we have the first and I believe only black princess that's basically should have been a Creole princess, basically. But I guess you could say that this woman basically sacrificed her image and her culture to pretty much uplift darker skinned black women, I guess. Which usually seems to be the case in a lot of cases. It never really seems to be the other way around. I know most people will argue that it is. But let's be honest. Being a first Disney princess with basically being mentioned with all the other well-known Disney princesses basically being referenced with Tangled, Frozen and all that. I think we can all agree that that's better than basically being posted in some rapper's music video. Being half naked in some rapper's music video. I think we can all agree that most sane people would rather want the first bit of representation more so than the latter. I know some people probably would say otherwise, but those people really shouldn't deserve to have a narrative anyway. Nonetheless, This seems to be a very common theme with Creoles. A lot of their basically French Creole history is always getting thrown in with the black communities. The same black community that basically tells light-skinned, MGM, or biracial people that we're only black when it's convenient to be, which is a lie within itself. It's pretty much the other way around. The predominant darker skinned black community makes most light skinned people black when it benefits them, which is the case right here, and which is also the case in this next showing, where we have a known multiple offender of blackwashing in Angela Bassett as Marie Laveau. Again, another Creole figure that was taken away by Angela Bassett, who was shown in my last blackwashing video as a 2-time offender of blackwashing. And yet, here we have her on this list yet a 3rd time. Now, this is funny to me, because when you think about it, if a light-skinned person basically got a whole career out of taking roles that should have been for dark-skinned people, how do you think that would make dark-skinned people feel? Oh, I think we all know what the answer to that question is. That person would be canceled. And probably would have hundreds of videos, thousands upon millions of Twitter responses, and who's to say probably not even harassment in some extreme cases. But when it comes to the other side, all of this stuff just seems to go out the window. Even at that expense of historical inaccuracy, which is definitely the case here. I mean, Louisiana is basically one of the most well-known Creole populations in the United States. And the fact that they would go this far off to portray basically a Creole person and this inaccurate of a light speaks volumes. It speaks volumes to the liberal Hollywood or Hollyweird agenda, basically. And it also speaks volumes to the selective outrage of the black community. Because I wonder what would happen if we cast somebody that looks like Marie Laveau as somebody that's supposed to be African, or better yet, you're a typical dark-skinned American person. Like, what if we cast somebody like Beyonce as Harriet Tubman, in which her movie, they made sure to get her right, even if they have to find a dark-skinned actor from overseas, which delves into a whole nother conversation that I'm sure people aren't willing to have soon about foreigners portraying American ADOS, black Americans, but we'll let them have that discussion. Right now, I think this is the discussion we need to have about how many times this keeps happening, which Creoles seem to be a very big victim of this, and how the black community is silent, more or less. But let's go to another one. And we have, once again, Denzel Washington, his 3rd offense as George McKenna in the George McKenna story. This one is just absolutely ridiculous. As George McKenna is basically a very fairly skinned Creole man. And once again, Denzel Washington, who we know all too well, has once again portrayed a light-skinned male again. So This is very confusing to me. I know a lot of people love to have this argument. Oh, well, we're all black and we're all the same. Okay. Or how the media, they claim that light-skinned men are so privileged in the media, and that white people and white men love us so much. But clearly, it seems to be the opposite. Because if they love us so much, why are they so willing to throw us under the bus to uplift another group of men that look that we might pretty much have the same identity with, but we look absolutely nothing alike? Like, this is just insane. And it's like they don't even try to make them look like them. I could understand a little bit more if they maybe put like some makeup or something and try to make them look somewhat like the person. But they just cast them and don't even try to make them look like them. They just said, oh, hell, here you go. And, of course, the black community doesn't say anything. Of course. I mean, let's be honest. They may say that we're all black, but let's just call it like it is. The black community could care less about light-skinned black men. Let's just be honest. They don't. Because if they really care so much, why do they sit in silence, knowing how these people look, knowing how historically inaccurate it is, and they just sit back and don't say anything? Like, where are the whole Twitter paragraphs for this? Where are these supposed pro-blacks that are all about black upliftment? Where are they? Nowhere to be found. Well, of course they're not going to care. Of course not, because it doesn't affect them. I mean, they try to parade that little facade, but it's just a lie. All of it is a lie. They just say that so we just sit in silence and just let them, with their basically Hollywood media counterparts, and just sit back and not question anything. And anybody who questions anything faces ridicule. As we see with the Golden Sphere, with all the recent events that have unfolded. This is what you get. But they don't ever question these directors that are doing this. No, they don't. So what's really the truth at this point? And next up we have Donald Glover as Alec Haley in the movie Queen. And I would urge any light-skinned MGM or biracial person to please watch this, because this is definitely very eye-opening about the struggle of mulatto / light-skinned people in slavery days. Please watch it if you have the time. It's very long, but trust me, it's worth it. But Alec Haley, who basically was portrayed by Donald Glover, was actually a mulatto mix. And like Queen herself, also was basically the son of a white slave overseer. So basically, the actual Alec Haley was biracial, just like Queen herself, which actually makes more historical sense, especially in slavery time. And it's even more obscene when you think that Alex Haley was the one who basically wrote off on this, clearly seeing that his grandfather was basically blatantly misrepresented. I mean, Donald Glover, you couldn't mistake this man for being mixed if you were drunk. And this is the thing that's scary about stuff like this. Like, a person that's more like historically pretty much pronounced like myself, I pretty much can tell the difference. But most people watching this would never know this bit of history. And you can blame it mostly on the Hollywood, basically. Because they're basically presenting a false narrative. Because I know there's a thing in YouTube going around where we got certain people that are saying that. Oh, you light-skinned and biracial people, you get your culture is from us. You can't build anything on your own. But if you dig a little bit more deeper, you will find out that that's a lie. All of it is a lie. In fact, if anything, it's the other way around. Like, just look at all these movies, shows. Countless upon countless examples of movie characters, fictional characters, that dark-skinned black people are basically representing at the expense of light-skinned and mixed people. Like, this is, can you even begin to imagine the level of like, if we just could wake up in a different reality one day, and these were basically all light-skinned people portraying dark-skinned fictional and non-fictional characters, I think we all know how this would end up. Like, look at even the few examples we have now with, like, Nina Simone, where we have Zoe Saldana basically apologizing to people for portraying her, which I think is just stupid if you ask me. Why isn't anybody asking Angela Bassett or Denzel Washington? And Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace to him. But let's be honest, we all know he wasn't supposed to be playing Thurgood Marshall. Like, why didn't anybody ask him to apologize? Like, the bias is just real at this point. It is eye-opening. And we have one more. And kudos to the subscriber. I would say your name, but I don't really want you to say your full name. But this subscriber and commenter basically has showed me this Netflix show by the name of The Harder They Fall. And it's basically a show that's based off of some real life, like outlaws and desperados. Basically a black western show, you can say. And this one is probably the most eye-opening one of them all. And we have Lakeith Stanfield as Cherokee Bill. As Cherokee Bill, as you see in this picture, his father was black, Mexican, and white, and his mother was half black, a quarter Cherokee, and a quarter white. And as you can see, this guy looks absolutely nothing like Cherokee Bill. Once again, it's like they're just, all you gotta do, even if they have a quarter black, you just turn around, cast the blackest guy you can find, and you just have to accept it. That's pretty much how it is. Especially in today's media, where we have examples that I've shown countless times, and yet no outcry, no outrage. And this is the thing, is a lot of these are fairly recent offenses. This didn't happen 20 years ago. Like, this show is from this year, basically. You just can't make this stuff up. Like, he doesn't look nothing like Cherokee Bill. This is just hilarious. And last and not least, we have Idris Elba as Rufus Buck in the same show, who is described, as you see in this picture, as half black, half Native American. And we have a unambiguous dark-skinned black male playing him. So we have Who's to say probably not more historical inaccuracies in this show? But this isn't really the thing that interests me with this show. What interests me the most is what we have right here as Zazie Beetz as Stagecoach Mary. Now, I will admit, I think the casting choice is bad. We can get that off my chest first. Yes, it is inaccurate. But notice in this example, there's no silence with this one. Look at these comments. And of course we see Twitter, all these people are going crazy over this. And this right here basically proves my point. Thinking of actresses that should have been playing Stagecoach Mary, Wamni Masuku pops into my head. Was Sis busy filming Loki? Someone in the body that Zazie Beetz occupies would never experience the harm that someone in a body like Marie feels would experience. Now, here we have basically what summarizes this whole video right here. Look at how they're reacting over her portraying Stagecoach Mary. Look at the backlash. Look at these articles. All you have to do is just type up Zazie Beetz as Stagecoach Mary, and all these colorism things come up. Look at Will Smith portraying Richard Williams. Now, from what I've heard, that movie didn't do so well, and I believe that probably has something to do because I watched it and it was a pretty good movie. But that movie didn't do so well for that exact reason. So this is where I'm confused. So if you guys get miscast, you riot and say that it's wrong and it shouldn't be like that. But when we get miscast, we're all black. No, it shouldn't be like that. There should be just as much backlash if it's the other way around. Why is it not? And look, we have Zazie Beetz, mind you. I understand the privilege that I have as a light-skinned woman, and it's always on my mind. I have multiple times turned down roles because I felt like I wasn't the correct choice for character. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's the same thing with Alexandra Shipp or Zendaya. Oh, I felt like I shouldn't have played this role. Okay, then, why are these dark-skinned actors constantly portraying all these light-skinned male figures? Where is the outrage? Like, these people don't say nothing in this. In fact, if anything, I would go as far to say that sometimes these people be praising it. And then we got all these little comments on some of my videos saying, oh, well, why does skin matter? It matters. Just like it matters to you guys, it matters to us too. So since y'all have all these little forums and stuff talking about how we shouldn't be portraying you guys, then why do you get to portray us? I mean, I thought we were all black. We're all treated the same. Shouldn't the same backlash be happening on the other side? Or is that just something else you guys have been lying about? Like, where do all these light-skinned saviors be? I know they're the first ones that say, you see, Zazie Beetz, I understand the privilege I have as a light-skinned woman. So she acknowledges that, but why didn't Denzel Washington come out and say anything about all the historical light-skinned males that he has portrayed? It's just it's just madness, lies on top of lies. And then notice with dark-skinned males, look, Louise Armstrong, the very known jazz position. Look who they get for him, Tracy Morgan. Now notice when it comes to them, they get their casting right. I mean, these guys look so much alike that you would swear that they're related down the line. Like, look at Tupac. I mean, the guy looks so much like Tupac, we thought it was Tupac. The guy looks so much like Tupac that we thought somewhere around the line that he was related to him. But when it comes to light-skinned men, it seems like that just goes out the window. Very seldomly where you see light-skinned men get portrayed correctly. Especially nowadays, because nowadays they just... Sometimes I hate even hearing that they're going to portray a light-skinned man in a historical movie, because it's basically fair game of who's portraying us at this point. Fair game at best. Deo Akaniwi, I think that's how you say his name, portrayed Shields Green in Emperor. And at the time, Shields Green skin color was commented. He was a Negro of the blackest hue. Black Negro, a full-blooded Negro. Or just all types of stuff about his skin tone, degrading his dark skin, which is terrible. But look at the way he's described. Look who they find for him. They made sure to find somebody that was in his image as a dark-skinned black man. Look. Yep. That pretty much, they found the perfect casting choice for him. But why does that not seem to exist when it comes to light-skinned men? Light-skinned men, I'm talking to you guys. And why do you guys just sit around in silence and let this stuff happen? Most of the light-skinned males on YouTube don't bring up nothing that has to do with what I'm talking about in this video. If anything, they are on YouTube basically kissing the black communities behind, basically. But if you ask any one of them about any of these light-skinned male figures, they would probably tell you, I don't care. And that is where the problem persists. If we don't care, nobody else will. I'm sorry. As you can see, dark-skinned black people, they don't want nobody but themselves portraying themselves. But when it comes to us, they think they can just come in and just say, oh, well, we're all black, so I can portray you. No, it doesn't work that way. Until the criticism is both ways, there should be no criticism at all. That is my attitude. And that's what everybody's attitude should be. It shouldn't be one side gets all the criticism and the other side gets much to no criticism at all. And it's on light-skinned people to do so. But anyways, that is my video today, guys. Thanks for watching, and peace out.